Hey guys, so I wanted to help those of you who are at-home learners kind of walk through this slideshow that I have right here. This is what we did in class today. So I wanted to make sure that I gave you the background information on our first set of steps in the cell cycle, which is interphase. Um, You'll want to make sure that you went ahead and opened up the guided notes, which you'll see are tagged in blue, like a blue link at the bottom of the lesson for today. And I'm going to help you kind of fill out some of this information and talk to you about what you need to know for the cell cycle. The very first thing that you see on here, what are some of the things that sort of happen in the beginning with interphase? So when a cell dies, there is a signal that's sent to all the other cells around it that tell the cells around it, hey, we lost one of our buddies and we need to go ahead and make some new ones. So in this particular blank here, you need to go ahead and put that cells are sent growth signals. So they're sent these growth signals whenever the other cells around them die, and that's what triggers the start of interphase. Interphase makes up most of the cell cycle, and mitosis makes up a very small portion. That's actually when the cell does the division. We call the phases of interphase G1, S, and G2. G1 and G2 mean gap 1 and gap 2. And then the S stands for synthesis. That's when we actually synthesize or we replicate the DNA. The next little blank here, interphase, is where a cell spends most of its time, and there are blank phases. The number you need to put here is 3. That's how many phases we have. Again, G1, S, and G2. So our cell will use interphase to be able to start preparing itself to make 2 new identical cells. This is asexual reproduction, meaning it's going to make identical copies. The cell expands, grows, separates into 2 new cells that have identical genetic information. Okay? Here is just a little rundown for you if you read over it. I put the checkpoints in the red dots just to show you where these checkpoints are at. I want to go back here real quick and show you, though. They put 2 of the checkpoints together as one. And so if you notice here, there's a checkpoint right after the cell grows, and then there's a checkpoint right before the DNA is going to start replicating. This checkpoint takes place with a specific protein, checks to make sure the cell's big enough. Right after that, there's a different protein that comes in and checks to make sure that the DNA that's going to be copied is healthy enough to be copied. So a lot of people consider these 2 little checkpoints to be one, and they often mark it on the cell cycle diagram as 1 checkpoint. So I wanted to make sure you understood that difference. Then, of course, we synthesize our DNA, we get our copies, and we check again because we all did DNA base pairing, and sometimes you make mistakes. And so we want to make sure that the DNA is copied correctly before it's sent off to become new cells. And so these are the 3 main checkpoint areas of interphase. Once this last checkpoint is done, the cell goes into finishing its preparations for mitosis, making sure it's grown as large as it needs to, and it's ready to go. Okay? I'll go ahead and stop this part of the video here, so that way I'm not making too long of a video lesson, and I'll cover the actual steps in a separate video for you. And so you can just click on that one right after.